Okay, I think I'll get started now so that we have the full hour for questions after my talk as well. So I'm going to go over the personal statement and then common mistakes that you should be avoiding with your personal statement. And that's basically what we're going to do for the next hour. And then if we finish early, I'll also do a bit of a Q&A for you guys. If you have any questions, personal statement related, Ucat related, or just medical school related, I can try and answer those. Before I go on to this, actually, is everyone able to see and hear me clearly? Probably should have asked that before, but just to check. If you just say yes or no in the chat. Yeah, perfect. Good. Okay, so just a little bit about 6Med. So it's been created by medical students for other medical students, and we've taught over 10,000 students in the last 6 years. The kind of events we run are surgery webinars between 2 to 3, and we also offer Ucat and Bmat support, as well as personal statement support and preparation for your interviews as well. So we do a bit of everything. With the Ucat, Bmat and personal statement, we either offer one-to-one support or there's large group courses which you can join, and they usually tend to run every Saturday. So I think the one next week is a Bmat course if anyone's interested to join those as well. So a little bit about me. So I'm a 4th year medical student. I study at Bristol and I just finished my intercalation at Imperial. So I'm going back to medicine for my last 2 years. Quite passionate about teaching, which is why I do these webinars, and I also do tutoring as well with 6Med and uni admissions. And I'm quite interested in surgery, so that's my current area of interest at the moment. So the kind of things we're going to cover today are look at common mistakes and then looking at avoiding and correcting these mistakes. So what I'll do is I'll show you passages of good personal statements versus bad personal statements and ask you to point out what could be done better. And then go through how you would edit the personal statement and refine it. And then finally go through a Q&A with any questions you guys might have about the personal statement. Just a bit of housekeeping, just make sure your mics are muted for the session, and I'm trying to make these sessions as interactive as possible when I run them. So feel free to any questions I ask, type the answers in the chat box and ask questions through the Q&A box as well. So keep doing that throughout the session, and I'll answer those questions either as we go along with the slides or right at the end when I'm finished with the presentation. So before we get started, on a scale of 1 to 4, how confident do you guys feel about your personal statement? So 1 being not confident at all, whereas 4 being really confident. So where are you guys on this scale? If you just type 1, 2, 3, or 4 into the chat box, I'll just give you guys a few seconds to do that. Okay, I've got most people saying between 1 and 2, a few people saying 3 as well. Okay, so hopefully by the end of this session, should feel a little bit more confident about how to approach your personal statement, how to get started and things like that. So aims for this session then is firstly to understand how to refine and edit your personal statement. And the main thing is also to understand and avoid the common mistakes that people make with a personal statement. So personal statements in general, just a summary on what they are. I have done a previous session, a 6Med surgery session on how to write your personal statement. So anyone who wasn't able to attend that can go and have a look at the recording for that. But just to summarize what was said in that session, the personal statements are just a brief summary of who you are. And it's you need to showcase your motivation for medicine. So why do you want to study medicine? What motivated you to pursue this career? And then you need to talk about why you think you're a good candidate to study medicine. So what qualities do you have that match up with that of a good doctor, which will then make you be a good medical student or a good doctor? And the final thing is, what do you do outside of medicine? Because although a lot of people might not think much of hobbies and extracurriculars, it is really important to talk about them in your personal statement, because that's the way they can get to know your personality a bit more, what your interests are, and also how you'll be able to manage your workload, and how you'll be able to establish a good work-life balance, because medicine's obviously a really stressful degree, so they want to know if you have good coping strategies for it. And in total, you've got about 4,000 characters, so I would say that's about 42-ish lines of text. And these characters are characters with, so spaces are also included as a character. So just be aware of that. So you actually have much fewer words than you would anticipate when initially writing your personal statement. So it will come to about 450 to 500 words. So it's not a lot, but you do need to include all of these things. So you need to find a way to talk about all of these things in a succinct way. So first question then, can you think of any common mistakes that people would make with the personal statement? Or have you guys, if you guys have started writing your personal statement, are there any mistakes that you've already made with your personal statement? Can anyone think of anything? Okay, I've got 2 answers in the chat box. So Emma says telling rather than showing. Yeah, that's a really good point. So I think what you mean by that is you're just sort of listing all the things you've done rather than actually reflecting on and talking about how those qualities make you a good candidate for medicine. So the personal statement, I always say, is quality over quantity. So pick the examples that you're using, pick the best ones to showcase your best skills. Don't talk about a load of things, because they don't care about how many things you've done. They care about whether you've reflected on and understood what it's like to be a doctor from the experiences that you are talking about. So Sorna says quotes. So quotes are fine. They are a little bit more on the cliche side. So I would generally advise people not to use quotes. But then if it's something from, a quote from a person who's really influenced why you want to study medicine, as long as you're able to justify that well and not make it sound as cliche, then it should be okay. But I would say be very cautious about using quotes, because they are not as good of a grip when you're reading personal statements compared to just writing about why you want to be a doctor. Arjun, again, just listing state achievements, yeah, that agrees. I agree with that same point as Emma. And Angela says too cliche as well. Jennifer also talking about cliche, and Arjun saying without reflecting. Yeah, so the main thing about a personal statement is your ability to reflect throughout your entire statement. Or wasting characters on naming specific care homes you volunteered at. Yeah, so currently helping a few students write their personal statement on one-to-one tuition, and I'm also helping, I've also marked personal statements last year with 6med, where people send in drafts and then I mark them and send them back to them. The main thing that I see with personal statements is lots of students name the hospital where they did work experience at, or which care home they volunteered at. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. Just say secondary care, just say, I worked in a GP, and go straight into the example you're trying to talk about, because it's just an unnecessary waste of characters. You don't need to name drop at all. It doesn't really matter. If they want to know specifics about your work experience, for example, in Bristol, they will ask you to fill out a work experience form, and then they'll double check where you've done your work experience. So the universities will ask you more information either at the interview or filling out a form once they've given you an interview. So don't worry about that at all. Don't name drop. Aisha, using big words. Yeah, sometimes it's actually better to be simplistic. So with the personal statement, don't try and sound cleverer. Don't try and use the thesaurus to replace loads of words. Just try and be yourself. You don't have to use really big words to seem like you're clever. They already know you're clever because of your predicted grades, your GCSE grades, and the fact that you're applying to medicine in itself. So don't worry too much about trying to use big words to seem more clever than you are. Just be simple and just make sure you're getting your points across in a very succinct way. Unevidence claims, yeah, basically just completely avoid that, because obviously universities do double check whether you've done certain types of work experience, or if you've done certain things. If you've read books, they will ask you about it at interview, so make sure you know them. Otherwise, if you don't know them well enough, or if it's been a while since you've read them, or if you haven't read them, don't put it in your personal statement. Maria, listing hobbies and experiences without saying how they helped you gain an insight into medicine or any skills you've learned. I agree with that one. And then Khadija, not writing skills that you've gained. Yeah, so what you need to do is point evidence example and then link. So I actually use Peel for each of my paragraphs. So make the point you're trying to make about why you a good candidate for medicine, give the evidence, explain why that evidence makes you have certain skills to be a good doctor, and then link it to the next paragraph. So that's the technique I'd follow. And Aisha again saying using big words. So yeah, I agree with that one. Okay. Really good answers, guys. So this is an example that I've just picked out from the internet, just somebody else's medicine personal statement. And it says, I've always wanted to study medicine from a young age, which is why I hope to pursue this career. I want to gain satisfaction from the fact that I can help people. Now, what do you guys think about this? So this would be an introduction to a medicine personal statement. What do you guys think about it? What's good about it, first of all, and then what's bad about it? What do you guys think? So Angela says it's a bit cliche. Anybody else think anything else? Does anyone think there are a few good things in here? And then can anyone think of any things that could be improved? So Jennifer says a bit self-absorbed. So with a personal statement, because it is about you, you can be a little bit more about, it's not self-absorbed, but a little bit more confident about talking about yourself, which I guess a lot of people do find difficult. I definitely did. It's really hard to talk about yourself when, you're not used to that situation. So rather than self-absorbed, I'd say it is good to be confident, but not arrogant / self-absorbed. Shows motivation, but it's cliche, yeah. Doesn't say what sparked the interest at the young age. Yeah, exactly. There's no specific example. So this could be anyone's personal statement. Anybody could have said this. So what makes this person unique and why should we give them an offer? So she needs to expand a bit more, I think. Angela does not show they understand the demands of medicine. Yeah, okay, perfect. So maybe she needs a few more lines to discuss that. Emma, too generalized, basically every profession helps people in one way or another. Yeah, so if you gave this sort of an answer in an interview as well, they might ask you things like, why not become a nurse then? Because they do exactly the same thing. Maybe they help people more because they have more one-to-one interactions with patients than doctors do. So that's a follow-up question that people might ask. Maria, explain why medicine is a goal, so give more context and elaborate on the point. So yeah, I agree with Maria. So it's a good starting point, but she needs to elaborate it and personalize it a bit more to her. So then it just doesn't sound like every other person's personal statement. Khadija, it's very generic. Lots of people would also say the same thing. Yeah, exactly. So you need something that makes you stand out from someone else. So you need that introductory few sentences to sort of really grab the reader's attention and personalize the reasons as to why you wanted to pursue this career. And then somebody else's should be more in third person, as it shows you've had an outside perspective of your experience. So actually, I disagree with this one. So I would say stick with I have always wanted to study medicine because I want to Always stick with the first person because this is about your personal statement. So don't use third person. Doesn't say what sparks the interest at the young age. Yeah, agree. I think somebody else mentioned that above. Okay. So the main issue with this is it's a cliche. So lots of people would have said this. Lots of people say they want to help people. That's why they're considering a medical career. But then, of course, nursing, other healthcare professionals, other non-healthcare related careers also help people. So, for example, law. So what makes you want to pursue medicine specifically? So how do we actually tackle cliches and how do we try and avoid them? Well, one thing I want to mention to everyone is these 4 reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 reasons on the left could be one of the reasons why you're considering doing medicine as a career. And I'm not saying these reasons are wrong. I'm just saying you need to elaborate on these reasons a bit more so that it's personal to you. So if one of your reasons, for example, is the same as the previous person's personal statement and it is that you wanted to help people, then what I want you guys to do is give specific examples of when you've enjoyed helping people and why that has then made you pursue this career. So what did you do a specific type of volunteering at a care home, which then made you think, I really like this role, it gives me a lot of satisfaction, therefore I want to consider medicine. Give examples from your work experience, what you observed there. Did you see, a doctor helping out a patient and the patient really benefiting from that? And as a result, did that make you want to pursue a career in medicine? So you need to give specific examples. Second common reason for studying medicine is the fact that, you know, you might just really do well in the sciences, or you really like biology and chemistry. As a result, you want to study medicine. But then again, you could go on and study biology or chemistry, you know, the sciences. Why specifically medicine? So you need to again personalize it. So what specifically did you enjoy learning about? Was it the heart or the lungs, or was it, you know, medical biology that specifically interested you? Did you then go on to read medical articles about, you know, heart disease or heart attacks? And then did you get more and more interested? So what you need to do in that first paragraph is show your journey into how you came to decide that medicine was the right career for you, and try and link that to the medical career, as I've said. The third common reason is usually people saying they've had a surgery when they were younger, or, for example, someone in their family has had a health issue, or someone in the family is a doctor. So I'll go through all of these three. So first one, I had a surgery when I was younger. So when you've had sort of an experience with the healthcare community when you're young, maybe that did have a really big impact on you, the way the doctors, you know, treated you, and that then made you pursue a medical career because you really looked up to that doctor as a role model. So you could talk about how did this surgery, or, you know, meeting with that healthcare professional impact you, and how did the medical team work together to help you? Did this inspire you? So you need to think of those things if that is your answer. If someone in your family had a health issue, again, same as above. So how did that health issue impact you and the rest of your family? How did the medical team work together to help your family member? Did this inspire you again? And then the final type of reason, which I would generally avoid. So if you have someone in your family who's a doctor, doesn't necessarily mean that you then have to pursue a medical career. I don't think it's a particularly strong reason for studying medicine. Maybe they did inspire you in the beginning, but you do need to show your own journey into medicine, not just my dad's a doctor, so I want to be one as well. So I don't think that shows that you've gained enough insight. So I think one of the other four reasons are okay. And then other than that, if you have a different specific reason where, you know, which made you want to study medicine, you can use those as well so that it's personal to you. Okay. So this is the second example. So it says, during my work experience, I saw a hip replacement and a knee surgery, which was interesting. I also spent time in GP where patients came in with different conditions like osteoporosis. In my free time, I enjoy swimming and playing the guitar. I'm also part of a football team. So this is paragraph 1 at the top, and this is paragraph 2 at the bottom. So first of all, what do you guys think is good about this bit of the personal statement? Sorry, Angela, did you raise your hand? Did you want to ask a question? You can unmute if you wanted to, or you can type it in the chat, either or, whichever you feel comfortable with. Don't worry at all. Okay, fine, don't worry. So can anyone think of any good things about these two paragraphs? Anyone at all? So Khadija, so Maria first actually stated hobbies and how their work experience gave them an insight into medicine. Yeah, Khadija, the student shows that they're able to balance their work life with hobbies. Yeah, good. And they give an example of gaining face-to-face insight, but doesn't state the skills gained. Yeah. Okay, what about bad things now? So what could be improved with this personal statement that could make it a little bit better? So it's too descriptive and they haven't reflected upon what they've learned from the experience. Yeah, I agree with that. So here where it talks about, I think this paragraph in general should be longer than 2 sentences. So during my work experience, I saw a hip replacement and a knee surgery, which was interesting. So rather than just interesting, I would like them to maybe just pick the hip replacement or just the knee surgery, because both of them are 2 really big surgeries, and you know, you do observe different things with each. Rather than saying interesting, maybe do a full stop after I observed a hip replacement which where the doctor did this and this, and they had good communication skills, which showed that they work well as a team, which really inspired me to study medicine. That's kind of what I'd expect. And then after talking about the hip replacement, maybe go into a little bit more depth about the spending time in GP. And rather than saying patients came in with different conditions like osteoporosis, specifically talk about that patient who came in with osteoporosis. What happened? What skills did the GP show between the doctor-patient relationship? How did that inspire you to study medicine? And then link it back to why this has motivated you to become a doctor. And then the second paragraph, in my free time, I enjoy swimming and playing the guitar. I'm also part of a football team. So what skills has this person gained from swimming? What skills have they gained from playing the guitar? How are those skills relevant for medicine? Again, football team, you know, you're working in a team, you need good communication skills for that. You need to be motivated and resilient, especially to deal with losses in a football game. So how have those skills motivated you to become a doctor? How have those skills you know, equipped you to be a good doctor as well? So that's what I need a little bit more elaboration on. So yeah, so free time activities help balance academic pressures. They act as a stress reliever, which they would like to continue with in university. That's a really good point to make as well. When talking about hobbies, they should have gone into depth about why they make them a good candidate instead of just lifting them. Yeah, really good. And also, as Arjun said, talk about how this will help them maintain a good work-life balance even when they come to uni. So really good, guys. So looking at lists. So the main issue with this is just listing. So listing swimming, playing guitar, listing hip replacement, knee surgery, things like that. So how would I actually change it? The main tip for you guys is to incorporate your reflection throughout your paragraphs. So the red bits are what's been changed from this. So obviously you can see it's a much longer paragraph. So what I've got this time is during my work experience in secondary care. So I'm specifically saying where I saw a hip replacement where everyone worked well in a multidisciplinary team to help the patient effectively. Through this experience, I understood the importance of teamwork and communication in medicine in order to provide high quality patient care. So we've got a little bit of reflection going on. We've got a little bit more detail about the hip replacement and what happened within the multidisciplinary team. And then she goes on to talk about, I also spent time in GP. One particular patient presented with osteoporosis, which had limited their mobility significantly. The GP demonstrated active listening and empathized with the patient to discuss treatment options, which inspired me to pursue this career. So just looking at that first paragraph, can it be improved even further? What else can be added to make it, you know, even better than it is? Can anyone think? It's just one more thing I'm looking for to add into that paragraph, which could make it better. Anyone know at all? So the only other thing I'd add is a sentence right at the end after pursue this career. And then I would say something along the lines of one or two sentences actually to show how you already have these skills. So for example, if this person in this paragraph has talked about teamwork and communication as well as active listening and empathy, then give an example where they themselves have shown these skills. So if they've done, you know, if they've been in the football team, talk about in my time, you know, being part of a football team, I have also demonstrated these skills, which would make me a good doctor, something along those lines, but obviously in better sentence structure than how I've said it. Arjun, so with regards to the multidisciplinary team linked to your experiences with sport, yeah, exactly, perfect. So in the second paragraph, in my free time, I enjoy swimming and playing the guitar. While swimming helps me de-stress, playing the guitar has taught me the importance of perseverance, especially when learning new songs. This is essential even as a doctor when dealing with difficult situations. So directly reflecting on how the skills they have will help them as a doctor. And both hobbies have helped me to establish a good work-life balance alongside my A-levels. The ability to de-stress from difficult situations is vital for a doctor, again, linking to medicine really well. And then I'm also part of a football team, which has helped enhance my teamwork skills. Obviously, they need to enhance a little bit more about this football team, but for the moment, that paragraph is pretty good. So everyone happy with the changes made from this to this? Anyone want to ask any questions? So Jen, yeah, Maria, yeah, go on. You can either type it in the chat or unmute, whichever you feel comfortable with. I'll just wait for a few more seconds. For the hobbies, do you have to give specific examples of events to show the skills? Yeah, so that would probably make it a little even more personalized than what's written on here. So this is just a slight improvement. This obviously can continue to be improved. So what I would say is I would say you know, when learning a specific song, so name the song if you wanted to, but then obviously that takes a bit more character. So maybe not a specific example for the guitar and the swimming, but when you're talking about your football team, you could talk about a specific time or any team sport where you've had a loss and you've had to motivate the rest of your team members for the next game or something like that. You can use a specific example. Is it advisable to write in third person or doesn't matter? It's probably advisable to write in first person as I've been showing you in all these examples. So using I or my, I, my, me, that's the first person. So I'd advise you guys to use that because that's what the person statement structure is normally like. If a particular sport's your hobby, do you need to be in a team for it to talk about it? No. You can still talk about, a hobby. If, for example, if you do running, so I do running, so that's obviously a sport that you do alone. You can run in a team when you're doing park run and things like that, but not necessarily. So if it's just a sport where it's just you, still talk about it because it's obviously a way for you that you de-stress and it's unique to you. So it's fine to talk about that. And you can talk about teamwork in some other part, for example, in your work experience or when you've done volunteering or something like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a team hobby. If you play an instrument, do you need to have given an exam for it? Because how do they know you can play it? I don't think they check stuff like that. So I played the piano. I did talk about piano in my hobbies section. I think if they wanted the evidence, they would ask for it. You don't need to prove it in your personal statement, so don't worry about that. If they wanted to know, if they wanted proof, they will ask for certificates and things like that. So you don't need to say, unless you're talking about a specific exam where you found it really difficult to learn as one of the pieces, and because of that, but then you persevered and then you were able to do well in the exam. You can talk about it like that, but you don't have to say, for example, for piano, you don't have to say I did, grade 6 ABRSM or something like that. They don't necessarily ask for it. They don't expect you to sort of specify that. Okay. So next one, so to pursue medicine, I'm studying biology, chemistry and maths at A level. I really enjoy maths and have won a silver medal in the maths Olympiad. So what do you think is good or bad about this? And what could be improved? Or elaborate more on why they enjoy maths and link it to medicine. Yeah, it doesn't really link to medicine. No point in listing your A levels when that information is already on Ucat. So yeah, that's the main thing I was trying to get across. So lots of people do this in their personal statement. They list all their A levels. Honestly, you don't need to because they've got your predicted grades. They know what A levels you're doing. They don't really care about it being in the personal statement. And the other negative for you guys, if you do this, is you're wasting characters, which could have gone, to a different sentence, which would have been more useful. Just remember that every single word, every single sentence needs to have meaning and needs to be important information for them because you're very, very limited in the number of words you have. So be really careful about using unnecessary words like this. Student needs to explain why they enjoy maths and what they learn from entering the competition. Yeah. Also, the fact that it's saying, I really enjoy maths, then why didn't you pursue a maths degree, for example? So again, you need to link their love for maths back to medicine, if that makes sense. The challenges you faced when studying biochem and maths and how you overcame them would probably be a bit more appropriate. So that sort of angle, taking that sort of angle to answer these, to do this paragraph would probably be a bit better. Is medicine supposed to be capitalized? So Not necessarily. It depends where you're using it in the sentence. If you're talking about it in, this is why I would like to pursue medicine, then it's capitalized. But then afterwards, I don't think you'd necessarily need to capitalize it because it's not a proper noun. So it should be okay. I think this was just an error here, so it doesn't need to be capitalized. Okay, yeah, so you don't need to state the obvious. So that's the main issue here. So studying biology, chemistry, maths, they already know that. So that was the main issue here. Again, stating the obvious also goes for something we talked about earlier, which was mentioning like which hospitals you did work experience at. It doesn't really matter. Just say secondary care or primary care, and it's fine. Is it suitable to talk about raising money for a charity in your personal statement? You can do if it's taught you certain skills which would make you a good doctor to then pursue a career in medicine, or if the charity was something medical related and something personal to you, you can talk about it. Yeah. Okay. What about this one? So to gain a better insight into the medical career, I read the books, This Is Going to Hurt, and The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. This was really interesting. So what do we think about these sentences in your personal statement? How can we improve them? It's not enough to say it was interesting. Again, it's a bit vague, isn't it? And also they've listed 2 books, and both of those books are slightly different. So The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat is about a neurosurgeon then developing and then they talk about Alzheimer's and stuff like that. Whereas This Is Going to Hurt is obviously about the obs and gynae doctor. Most of you might have heard about that book, which has recently become a BBC series. So they're contrasting books as well. So what did you gain? What knowledge did you gain from each of these books? How did that still make you want to pursue a medical career even after reading them? Yeah, so there's no insight into how reading these books makes you a better candidate, and it doesn't show what you've learned. So yeah, well done. So it needs a little bit more elaboration. You can talk about books. To be honest, I didn't do any wider reading. I didn't read any like medical related books or any biographies or anything like that. I just preferred more to talk more about my work experience and my volunteering. And I do like reading medical articles. I just don't like reading medical related books. So medical articles on like heart disease and blood transfusion, things like that was much more interesting to me than sitting and reading a giant book. So for me, that wasn't worth it, but I know some people who did read a book and then that came in really useful for their personal statement. So it is personal preference. These books often relate to specific lessons and ideas that can improve care. There's no reflection. Yes, that's what we're looking for here. There's no reflection at all, which is what's needed. Explain what the book was about, how it links to medicine, what interested you as well. Yeah, good. Can you include activities from year 8 to year 10? You can do. Depends what they are, because as I said, you've only got 500 words or 4,000 characters, and that's with spaces. So you really need to pick and choose which examples showcase your best self, because you may have more examples than you actually need. So what I would advise is actually writing sort of in a table, work experience, hobbies, supracurriculars, extracurriculars, basically, and then having another column to say what examples did you observe from each of these experiences, and then another column to say what skills have you learned and how these skills will make you a good doctor, and then finally linking it back to medicine. So if you make like a table basically of all the examples you've got, then you can pick the best ones, because some of them you'll definitely be able to talk about in more depth than others, and those are the ones that you should be choosing, because you will be able to have a good quality personal statement. And as I said, it's again quality over quantity. So are virtual work experiences still seen as being valid? Yes, they are. I think we are going back into normal work experience, but for your cohort, it would be for 2022/23 entry, obviously. Sorry, 23/24 entry and further on. It will obviously be still counted, the virtual work experience, because it's still quite difficult to get work experience in hospital and GP because of COVID. So virtual ones still count to the same level as in-person ones do. So don't worry about that. So yeah, the other thing actually that I wanted to touch on was usually when people don't go into too much depth about the books they've read, they might be they might not really have read it in depth, or they might not have read it at all, and they're just name dropping for the sake of it, to seem interesting. So obviously don't do that. Avoiding that, because they will double check and they will ask you it in interview, and you could get caught out there. Nimisha, also, will the interviews be in person this year? Depends where you're applying. I think a few of them have gone back to in person. I don't know personally off the top of my head, but I think most of them will stick to virtual, and then some of them will be going back to face-to-face, but it will change as, you know, COVID cases change as well. And because interviews are usually November to April, and November is when COVID gets quite bad in hospitals, same as the flu. We don't really know, and it's probably best just checking the uni website regularly to see if anything changes. But they will state it on their medicine page. Okay. Oh. So just some minor things to remember is your stuff like your spelling and grammar, and making sure your sentence structure is okay. So some people have really long sentences, so just break up the sentences into two smaller ones, put a full stop somewhere, so that you're not, you know, dragging on for, you know, an entire paragraph and it's just one sentence. Try avoid using a passive voice, so be active. So say stuff like, I did this, I did that. Don't sort of sound passive, sound really confident in your personal statement is what I'm trying to say. And as I said before, give specific examples, because that's what will make you stand out compared to somebody else, because the experiences that you've had in work experience will be slightly different to somebody else. So you giving specific examples will make you stand out. So yeah, as I was saying before, when you're doing your work experience, or if most of you have done it now, if you can maybe create like a work experience diary, so this could be on your computer, or if you prefer handwriting it, do that. And try and find an example from your work experience. So for each column, you can use different examples, and then list, basically do bullet points of what skills you observed. Then how have you demonstrated these skills yourself, and how has this experience motivated you to be a doctor? So bullet points in each section, and that will really make your life so much easier when coming to write the personal statement, because you'll have a list of different things to choose from. And basically, once you've done these bullet points, you've technically written your personal statement. You just need to put it into proper sentences, and then you're done. You've done most of the work once you fill in this work experience diary. So what techniques do you guys think you can use to cut down on your personal statement? What do you think will help if you're over that 4,000 character limit? Okay, Emma, avoid filler words. Yeah, good. Take out unnecessary phrases, take out adverbs. Yeah, good, 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 all good. The Gibbs reflective cycle, to condense information and write the most important points. Yeah, good, good. So there's the Gibbs reflective cycle. There's also another one which people use for interviews, so the STAR model, STARR. So you can use any of them to try and be as succinct as you can. So when you're editing, just try and use synonyms. So if you've said, for example, if you say, this is why I wish to pursue medicine, you've used the word pursue, and then you want to talk about, you want to use that same sentence, but in a different way, right at the end in your conclusion. Rather than saying pursue, you can replace that word with something else so that it doesn't sound like you're repeating yourself. Try and break up the sentences so it's not too long and complicated for people to read. As I said before, every sentence should have an impact. Make every word count, because you're limited in your word count. So you need to get your main points across in a succinct way. And also get rid of unnecessary words that don't add to the personal statement. And as we've gone through that before, you know, name dropping random titles that you don't really need, listing your biology, chemistry, or your A-level subjects, just unnecessary. So remove all of those to try and cut down. So that was the tips and basically how to review your personal statement and how to cut down and things that I've gone through. So on a scale of 1 to 4, how do you guys feel now about approaching your personal statement? And I hope most people feel a bit better. Good. That's really good to see. Okay, so if I move on to the next one. So I've just got some time to spare. Let me just check. So we've got about 20 minutes. If you guys wanted to stay behind and ask questions, if you're happy with everything, feel free to go and enjoy the rest of your day. But if you do have questions, start typing in the chat, and I'll be here until the end of the session, until 3. So feel free to send in questions. And if you guys want any specifics about Bristol or Imperial, where I've done my intercalation, feel free to ask about that as well. How many paragraphs should the personal statement be? So your first paragraph should be intro and motivation to study medicine. The next 2 should be about work experience. Sorry, the next 3 should be about work experience. And then the last one should be hobbies. And then your final one should be conclusion. So approximately 6. But remember that your intro and conclusion should be really succinct and short. So about 6 paragraphs, I'd say. But it will vary from person to person. If you haven't got any volunteering in a healthcare related environment, do you think it would put you at a disadvantage? No, because volunteering, you develop the same skills, whether it's healthcare related or non-healthcare related. So, you know, showing empathy, communication, teamwork, and things like that. So all the skills are the same, so it's fine. Should you avoid using the word passionate? You can use it. I think it is more on the cliche side. So try and find a different career, but it's not the end of the world if you do use it. Yeah. Does submitting your application early have any effects on when you'd be offered an interview if successful? No, because they wait until all the applications are submitted. So that should be by the 15th of October. And then the admissions team start going through them. And then they look at everyone, and then they see which people to offer an interview for. Otherwise, it's not fair. I've lots of work experience in different areas of research and virtual GP work experience. I don't have much volunteering beside a vaccination campaign and treating my grandfather during dementia. Will that be enough? That's more than enough. To be honest, I don't think you'll be able to talk about all of those experiences that you've mentioned in your personal statement. So I talk about the main ones which have made you pursue a medical career, and then the rest of them I would keep those examples to use in your interview when you get your interview offer. When do interview offers start coming in? Well, interviews run between November to April, so they should start coming in early November. So it's mid-November to mid-April is when interviews run in for most unis. So they'll start coming in early November, unless you're applying for Bmat unis, in which case it might take. Oh no, they've moved up the Bmat date. So yeah, probably early November. I've very little voluntary experience. I've only done volunteering and took up extra roles at school. I've done work experience as well, but I'm not sure if volunteering around school has the same weighting as volunteering outside of school. It does, doesn't really matter as long as, because the skills you're learning are the same. So don't worry about that. So a few people in the Q&A. So just answer that one. It's out of today's topic, but I need help with that. What about access course to medicine? Do you think it's worth it? And if you can talk about it in details. So I don't know too much about it. What I would actually do is try and email one of the 6med admin people, because there are a few people who went down that route who are now tutors with 6med and with uni admission. So it's probably worth asking them in that way so that you can have a chat with someone. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about it, so I'm not that much of help, but hopefully you will be able to get some questions answered. Can you talk about something in your interview if you said it in your personal statement? Yes, because not all, especially for MMIs, not all your interviewers are going to have time to read every single person's personal statement. So you can mention it again. Also, because they have like about 1,000 applicants per year, then not each university is not going to remember all the personal statements they've read after they've done the initial cycle. So you can talk about it again, it's fine. How do you make your personal statement sound more scientific in the work experience paragraphs? I mean, if you've seen a patient with a certain disease, like a heart attack, which is also called an MI, maybe read up on that condition, what a heart attack is, how it happens, what treatment they get, if that's something that interests you, and then talk about it in a bit more depth and say, after I've observed this patient who had a heart attack, I then went on to read this, this, and this, and then try and talk about it in a technical way and make sure you understand what you're talking about, and that will make it sound a bit more scientific. How do I sign up to have someone like you help or advise me with my first personal statement? Okay, that's a good question. So I think we do personal statement redrafts. It's through the SixMed website, but again, whoever emails you about SixMed admin stuff, I would email them back and ask. So once you're done with your personal statement, if you send it through, then we'll be able to mark it for you. There is a payment for it, so I think you can submit as many drafts as you want. You pay a certain fee, I can't remember how much it is, and then you get it sent through, and then we mark it, and then you can send it as many times as you want after you do that. What is one piece of advice you'd give for medical interviews? Probably be yourself. Make sure you read your personal statement the night before, because that's basically like a cheat sheet to answer a lot of your interview questions. Like, why do you want to study medicine is basically what you've said in the first paragraph of your personal statement. What work experience have you done? That question, the second two paragraphs where you talk about your work experience. So your personal statement is your cheat sheet. And a lot of people forget the main thing, body language. It is really easy to sort of dismiss, but interviewers do give you marks on having open body language, being confident, and being happy to be there and answer the questions, and that's how you show your enthusiasm. So you do get a few marks for that as well. Would learning languages count as a valuable hobby? As in, I could say I have learned how to memorize information properly, and I've thought of effective methods of doing so. Yeah, I mean, if that is one of your hobbies, and if you're confident enough to talk about it in a lot of depth, yeah, feel free, go ahead. Is it better to avoid the words love, interested, and fascinated? Yeah, so I'd say don't be too sort of, don't use a lot of superlatives. Like, I've loved doing this, I'm interested, I'm really interested, I'm really fascinated. Rather than tell, as someone said before, show how you love them, show your interest, show your fascination. You don't need to say those words specifically. So yeah. Any other questions? Now, it doesn't have to be about personal statement. If you guys have run out of personal statement related questions, it can just be about general medical stuff or Ucat or anything, whatever you want to ask about. If not, feel free to go. So I don't want you guys staying here just for no reason. So if you're happy with all the answers, happy with the presentation today, feel free to go. How can we prepare for the Ucat? I think just making sure to spend equal amounts of time on each of the sections. So if you haven't started, obviously I don't know which year group most of you guys are in, but if you are, going into year 13, most of you would have probably started revising already, but just make sure to do regular mock tests, so then you can figure out which areas are weaker, so you can spend a bit more time on them. But then at the same time, don't neglect your strong areas, because what you'll find is if you don't study one section for a week, you might come back to it and then you might, not remember anything, or you might not do as well. So keep all of the sections up to date, but then the ones you need a bit more practice on, spend a little bit more time. And every time you get a question wrong, make sure to go and actually read why you got that question wrong and try and understand it as well as you can, because that's what's going to help you improve in the long term. Is the score of 2,300 considered a good score? Oh, I can't remember. It depends on the cutoffs for each year. Let me just calculate the average for that. So it's 575. It's not too bad. Each year, after everyone has written their Ucat exam, the cutoff scores will be available and the average for the year will be available. And based on that, each of the universities will will create a cutoff, which is basically this minimum score that you need to gain an interview, and then they'll look at other aspects of your application as well. But if your score is lower than the cutoff, don't be discouraged, because some universities don't look at the Ucat as much as others do. And again, they will mention how much percentage they're going to allocate towards the Ucat compared to personal statement and your A-level grades. So you need to check the university websites for that information, and that changes each year. 3,000, yeah, is a really, really good score. Yeah. If you haven't been to any university open days, would you be at a disadvantage? No. So funnily enough, I didn't go to any of my university open days. First time I visited the university was at my interview for both Bristol and Cardiff. So it doesn't really matter if you haven't gone on open days. The only thing is it would give you a better insight of whether you'd actually like living there, living in that city and going to that university. It gives you more of an insight into what the university is like, what the people are like. You can speak to current students, so that does give you an advantage if you go to open days. But if you haven't had the time to, it's not the end of the world, so don't worry too much about that. Should being original in my personal statement be a focus while writing? Yes, but then obviously don't try and put too much pressure on yourself. If your motivation for medicine is because you like helping people, that's still fine. Just make sure that it's personal. Give a personal example of why you think helping people is a really good quality to have in this career, and talk about a specific example from your work experience where you've helped a patient, for example. Do you have any book recommendations to study for the Ucat? So there's this one, which is the one I use, might be a bit outdated now. 1,250 Ucat questions book. You can find like secondhand copies on Amazon. Might be slightly outdated at the moment, but it still, gives you a good idea of some of the really, really hard questions. Especially for quantitative reasoning, it had really difficult questions in there. So that'll probably come in handy. And there's obviously 6med Ucat Ninja if you wanted to sign up for that one as well. No problem. Hope you guys have a good day. How long should students spend revising for Bmat in order to attain a good score? It's a really good question. You guys, next week we start like the Bmat surgery sessions. So every Sunday 2 p.m. Martin's going to run the Bmat sessions where he's going to go through section 1, 2, and 3. So that question is probably better directed at him. I also say that because I didn't do the Bmat, so I don't really know much about it. So I'd probably direct the question at him next week. So that he'll probably be able to answer that question better than me. Are the Ucat sessions every Saturday? Oh, so it's like a day course and they take you through. So I did a few of them in July and early August, and you do verbal reasoning and QR in the morning. Then you do decision making, AR, in the afternoon, and then you have lunch, and then you do SJT last. And they just take you through all the sections. So it's 1 hour per section, and one of the tutors basically teach you through all of the sections to give you tips, and then we go through all the different types of questions for Ucat. So it's a 1-day course which runs on Saturdays. We've just finished the first set of them. The last Ucat course is on the 10th of September, which I'm teaching. Right now we're doing the Bmat teaching session. So I think if you get the 10th of September one, you should be able to attend that. Why am I not improving in my Ucat? So Sanya, is there specific sections which you're finding more difficult, or is it just overall you're finding it difficult? So what's the issue? Have you identified that yet? What are you struggling with? How have you found the degree experience of medicine so far? What motivates you to pursue it? So my reason was because I really liked biology, especially learning about like renal stuff, so kidneys and hormones and endocrine stuff. So that was my reason for pursuing it, because I really liked learning about diabetes and stuff like that at A level, which is why I wanted to pursue it. And then I did work experience, and I did it in obs and gynae, so delivering babies and stuff like that. And I really liked the teamwork aspect of it, and I liked how we're using our theoretical knowledge and putting it into practice and trying to communicate that to patients in a way that they can understand, so they know what's going on with their body. So that's why I liked it, and that's why I pursued it. So far, Bristol's been really, really good, because I know a lot of unis say from the first week of medicine you get contact with patients, but with Bristol, you literally, the first week we'd started, that Thursday we were in GP placement, we were speaking to patients. So they really do push you into the deep end, but that's I think the best way to learn. So I've really enjoyed it, and I think I've enjoyed third year and fourth, the last 2 years a bit more than the first and second year, because first and second year you just sit in lectures a lot of the time, whereas the last 2 years it's been fully in hospital, which is what I prefer. I prefer learning from patients rather than from a textbook. So it's been really good so far, and I've really enjoyed it. And I've just taken the last year, I've taken a break from medicine, and I've done an intercalation in Imperial, and I did mine in endocrinology, which is what I initially liked when I was in your shoes, when I was at your stage. So yeah, so that's why I did that this year, and then I'm going back to medicine for the last 2 years. So Sanya, I've done a lot of questions but not improving overall. So what I would do is after you've done questions, go back to the ones that you've got incorrect, and then try and read through why you've got that incorrect, and try and understand the reasoning for why your answer is not correct and the other one is. And then a week later, try repeating that question and see if you're able to get it right. And I think it's just about with practice and the types of techniques you're using. So for VR, making sure you're finding keywords and scanning rather than reading the whole passage. And then for QR, doing a lot of it in your head and not relying too much on the calculator, and remembering formula like speed equals distance divided by time. It just makes your life a lot easier. So what learning styles does Bristol University use? So we use CBL, which is similar to problem-based learning. It's case-based learning. And case-based learning is when you get given a case about a patient who has a certain disease, and then you have to sort of, in a group of, we had 11 people in our group, you have to figure out what's wrong and then try and pick out key topics to learn from. And then everyone goes away during the week, and then they research their specific topics, and then they come back and we teach each other. So that's how we learn. To couple up with that, we also have lectures, which will talk about the stuff that we're learning in our case, but also talk about other diseases related to the heart. So for example, if it was the cardiovascular week, we would be getting lectures on the heart throughout the whole 2 weeks, but we'll also be doing the CBL case and focusing on this particular patient to try and figure out what's wrong with them. So you're pretending like you're the doctors on and dealing with this patient case, and then you're working together to find out what's wrong with them and how to treat them. So it's a really good way of sort of problem solving. So that's how we do it in Bristol. Do universities care more about AS level or predicted A levels? Your predicted A level grades, and then obviously if you have your actual A levels, they care about that. Also, what's an intercalation year? What do you do during that time? So intercalation is taking a break from medicine and spending 1 year in research. In Bristol, it's optional. In some other universities, it's compulsory. So what you do that year is you learn medical statistics, you learn how to read papers, how to interpret them, and then you get involved in clinical research, and you have to write a paper based on that clinical research for your final dissertation. And you can do it on anything you like. And across the UK, there's so many different subjects that you can get involved in. So I decided to do mine in endocrinology, which is everything to do with hormones, but because that's what I was interested in, and that's the part of medicine that I find the easiest and I find the most interesting. So I did it in that. Some of my friends did it in surgery. So you do a year of learning laparoscopic surgery, and also you do a paper on that. Some people did it in anatomy, and people who usually do an intercalation in anatomy are the ones who want to go into surgery later. So it's also building your portfolio. Some people have done it in public health. So obviously COVID at the moment is a massive public health issue. So they did their projects in public health and intercalation year. They tried to learn about viruses, bacteria, so that's what you learn about. So it's more like a science year rather than medicine, which is obviously you're looking at patients all the time. It's a little bit of a break from that, and it feels more like a normal university experience, because obviously medicine's completely slightly different in the way they run the degree. It does mean that you spend an extra year at university, which means that if you go to a university where intercalation is optional, half of your year group who don't intercalate will end up being in the year above you because you've taken a year out and then you're coming back a year later. But at the same time, for me, I thought it was the best decision because I really like research and I wanted to improve my research skills, which is why I went ahead to do that. How many hours a day should you spend revising for the Ucat? Oh, so to be honest, it depends on the individual. For me, I did about 2 to 4-ish, depending on which sections I was focusing on that day. If it was quantitative reasoning or abstract, which are the 2 sections I found the hardest, probably spend a bit longer than the other sections. And the reason why I only did about 3 to 4 hours per day is because otherwise you'll just get burnt out and you'll really struggle and you'll get sick of studying for the Ucat. So don't do too much revision, but I'd say approximately 3 to 4. What's an abroad placement year? So that's not really for medicine, it's for other degrees where you take a year out of the degree you're doing, and you do 1 year placement in wherever the university is offering you to do it in. It could be in this country, it could be somewhere else. You might be referring to, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but there's something called an elective, which everyone at the end of their final year of medicine do. And you can either do that here or you can do it as in the UK at your university. In the UK at a different university to the one you go to, or outside of the UK. And the elective, but the only thing is you have to fund it yourself. So you have to pay for everything, and you also have to organize everything yourself. So a lot of people, some people do tend to go to other countries, but most people tend to stay here and do research for those 2 months. So yeah, abroad placement, yeah, I've only heard it mostly for other degrees, where they do a year in industry or something like that. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. If there are no more questions, I'll stop it there. But thanks guys for being so interactive and getting involved with all the questions and stuff. But I'll probably see you sometime, I don't know, down the line on one of the Sundays during the 6-month surgery or on one of the Ucat courses. But yeah, good luck for everything. No problem. Have a good day, everyone.